Discover the incredible secret that helped a father transform his baby's 3-month prognosis into a journey of hope against all odds. James kept his rugged hands busy, tight against the resilient metal working in the small Ohio garage. The grease-stained jeans and worn-out t-shirt wasn't just a uniform, they were proof of a dedication that had shifted drastically since the birth of his daughter, Lily. The moment he held her, his heart swelled with a love he never knew existed. But just as the joy of fatherhood began to bloom, a crushing weight fell upon him. The doctor's words rang hollow in his ears, echoing the bleak prognosis of only 3 months. With a rare heart condition binding his baby girl, he was thrown into a spiraling abyss of despair. His nights turned restless, dreams invaded by thoughts of loss. Would the greasy tools he wielded to fix others' woes come close to mending his own child's life? The tension dragged at his chest, making breathing feel like a punishment. He felt the tears almost slip as he thought about the short time left each moment with her now felt like grains of sand slipping through his fingers. His family rallied around him, his mother's soft embraces were a balm against the emotional storm, while his grandfather's stories had woven a tapestry of strength in James's fragile spirit. Yet every story of resilience and hope only deepened the conflict within. Did he even deserve a miracle? His desperate yearning for a solution grew into an obsession, the pages of desperation he turned marked with uncertainty. In the chaotic whirl of doctors and nurses, amidst well-meaning advice, James retreated to the attic. There, covered in dust, lay an old leather-bound journal, its pages curled and yellowed with wisdom from generations past. Blurred are the lines of hope and delusion, he felt fear trickle down his spine. What if these forgotten methods, these remedies of yesteryear, cradled the answers? What if he devoted himself to this unlikely path and it slipped away like everything else? Before he could ponder further, a burning resolve ignited. The specialists preached conventional procedures, their tone laced with skepticism, as if they were the final word. But the remedies in the journal whispered rebellion. He stammered through arguments, defiant against their polished expertise, the tug-of-war between love and despair gnawing at his insides. Questions of validity loomed. Was he risking Lily's life in pursuit of hope, or was he the only one who could truly save her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The internal battle raged on. With each passing day, James faced an agonizing truth. He wasn't just fighting for Lily, he was wrestling with the very core of his identity. The line between being a loving father and a desperate man faded under the harsh lights of the hospital, and every tense confrontation left him feeling more frail. The pressure of possibility intertwined with despair twisted like a coil inside him. Small victories seemed so far away, and anguish began to seep into even his most stubborn hope. Just when the weight of his choices threatened to bring him down, a shocking revelation from the specialists pulled the rug from beneath his feet, leaving him breathless. What he discovered could change everything, but at what cost? The stakes escalated. He was left standing at a precipice facing the ultimate question of whether he would fight convention or succumb to the nightmare that awaited him. Would he conquer this battle for Lily, or was he fated to lose her? The reality of the specialist's revelation reverberated in James's mind like an echo in a cavern. The possibility of a groundbreaking, albeit untested, treatment emerged as a beacon of hope. Yet, shadows of uncertainty danced around it, taunting him. The haunting memories of his family's collective sighs in the waiting room mingled with their relentless optimism, tightening the grip of internal conflict he could hardly bear. As days bled into each other, James wrestled with this newfound information, not just about Lily's condition, but about himself. He saw it clearly. The choice ahead was not simply about medical procedures but about who he was willing to become in the name of fatherhood. The raw, unfiltered anxiety churned in the pit of his stomach, reminding him that every decision would ripple through their lives. Was he prepared to defy the professionals who had taken oaths to heal? Could he trust the journal's ancient remedies over contemporary medicine? He found himself staring into the rearview mirror of his truck, contemplating the man who once punched the gas at dream-chasing and fleeting ambitions. Now, he was parked at the crossroads of desperation and determination, heart pounding as he navigated through his emotions. The decision he faced felt monumental, yet he knew that turning away now would only deepen the void looming over his family. The hours spent in the garage morphed into an extension of his mind, a sanctuary to wrestle with thoughts, a refuge from judgment. Sweaty palms clutched the journal like a lifeline, each yellowed page whispering age-old secrets and knowledge that demanded to be unearthed. In the dim light, the contrast between the worn leather and his grease-stained hands symbolized the fight ahead, one that required both sanitation and grit. Suddenly, the clarity hit him. What if he combined modern medicine with insights from the past? The journal could hold the key to unlocking untapped potential, and he could harness it to advocate for Lily. Stepping back into the world, a burning desire surged to not only challenge but also enhance the recommended medical approaches. It was time to gather the pieces and confront the ensemble of experts that had been the barrier to his daughter's future. Fueled by adrenaline and resolve, he began to sketch out a plan. James sought expert opinions not only from the doctors but also from alternative practitioners, diving into research about holistic approaches that might bridge the gap between them. Each late night spent poring over leading-edge supplements, nutritional therapies, and even ancient practices of healing mirrored his grit. His perseverance drew attention, and soon he found himself connecting with others, parents who've navigated similar storms, experts who believed in integrative approaches. With every shared story and success, James's perception of his fatherhood shifted. He was not powerless in this fight, he was evolving into an advocate, a warrior for Lily's life. Yet, amidst the burgeoning hope, the specter of doubt lurked at the periphery of every encounter, questioning his motives and sanity. The time had come to confront the specialists again, armed with knowledge that could reshape their engagement. It felt like a lion preparing to roar against figures wrapped in gowns of authority, their convictions opposing his newfound revelations. But as he prepared for battle, a chilling thought crossed his mind: what if the road he had been charting spiraled down a path of rejection, leaving him alienated from the very support system that had once provided solace? With determination implanted in his veins and the weight of the unknown threatening to crush him, James took a deep breath, gripping his journal tighter than ever before. The moment to catapult from the shadows of despair into the light of action was closer than he felt ready for. Would this confrontation be the turning point that would save his daughter, or would it reveal a darker truth about the world around him? The crucial meeting loomed large on the horizon, and with it, uncertainty clung to his every thought. The battle was on the verge of beginning, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that even more questions awaited him, questions that might uncover secrets he wasn't prepared to face. James sat across the polished table, a lone entity amidst a sea of medical professionals. Their demeanor was serious, eyes betraying the faintest glimmers of skepticism as they reviewed the data he had painstakingly compiled. He felt the weight of their scrutiny, a tangible pressure that urged him to rehearse every statement he intended to make. Today was the day he would demonstrate to them the resolve that had grown exponentially in the days leading up to this moment. He cleared his throat, the noise filling the tenable silence before he began. With each word, he painted a picture not only of Lily's condition but also of the potential for change, for healing that bridged ancient wisdom with modern practice. It felt surreal, he was no longer the passive observer caught in a web of despair. Now, he was a participant, a challenger, and the stakes felt higher than ever. We need to consider integrative approaches, he asserted, channeling the collective knowledge from his research and conversations. The journal outlines therapies that have helped children in similar situations. While I respect your expertise, I believe we can explore alternatives alongside the proposed treatments. He noted their subtle shifts: furrowed brows, nodding heads, or crossed arms. Each response fueled his determination. Yet, an unspoken war raged within him. Was this declaration of intention righteous self-advocacy, or was he simply a desperate father grasping at straws? Dr. Hayes, the lead specialist, interjected with a slight shake of the head. "James, I admire your initiative. However, our protocols are based on extensive research and clinical trials. Jumping into the unknown could jeopardize Lily's health further. The word struck a nerve, sparking an inward contest. Was his desire to promote alternatives a form of recklessness? He wrestled with the thought, but quickly reminded himself, inaction was not an option. My daughter's life is in the balance, and while I honor medical protocols, I cannot ignore other pathways. You all claim the goal is her health, and I am here to advocate for her, he replied, his voice steady despite the thrum of anxiety. As the discussion progressed, James found a rhythm in the exchanges. Every rebuttal from them was met with fortified reasonings from him. He illustrated stories of other families leveraging integrative practices, articulated theories that sparked intrigue in the realm of holistic medicine, and cited studies that showed classical treatments often complemented with ancient remedies yielded positive results. But the cadences of doubt persisted, a near-constant hum that suggested he was walking a precarious line. In one of the quieter moments, he caught Dr. Hayes' gaze, the depth of her examination almost read like an accusation. Are you prepared for the consequences if things go awry? What if the alternatives you propose lead down a rabbit hole of disappointment? James grimaced inwardly at the question. It cut to the core of his fears. Was he truly equipped to navigate this tumultuous journey? What if he was wrong? But then what if he was right? Facing the abyss of failure was one thing, but inaction driven by fear was another. He had seen the true nature of despair, and it wasn't a place he intended to revisit. The meeting culminated in a softening atmosphere. While Dr. Hayes diplomatically maintained her reservations, several other specialists began nodding in agreement, intrigued by the potential of collaboration. Confidence burgeoned within him. Perhaps this was the turning point he yearned for. As the meeting adjourned, James retreated to the parking lot, breathless. He was aware of the silence wrapping around him, much like the moments prior to a storm. Anticipation mixed with trepidation stirred in his chest. Had he truly bridged gaps, or merely ignited a flame of discontent amidst the professionals entrusted with his daughter's care? With every step, he felt a lingering curiosity nudging at the edges of his consciousness. Had he revealed solutions that could transform his daughter's fate? Or had he merely cracked the surface of a deeper conundrum? And more importantly, what repercussions would follow in the days ahead as he stepped deeper into this uncharted territory? The uncertainty gnawed at him, yet each question served as a reminder that the battle was just beginning. He gripped the journal tightly, feeling the weight of generations within its pages and the urgency to uncover more clarity in the complexities ahead. As he opened the door to his truck, he couldn't shake the feeling that his next steps would not only define his daughter's fate but might also unearth hidden truths of his own capabilities that he had yet to discover. The truck's engine rumbled to life, but James remained motionless, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. Thoughts circled in his mind like vultures waiting to feast on his doubts. As he navigated through the familiar streets, he struggled to digest the gravity of his recent confrontation. What did it mean to challenge an established medical narrative? He was no longer just a father seeking answers, he had stepped into the role of a vocal advocate, and that required a level of accountability he had never known. Upon arriving home, James was greeted by Lily's laughter echoing through the house. The sound was a balm and a burden. It reminded him of the joy she brought but also the stakes at play. Striding into the living room, he found her sprawled on the floor with a kaleidoscope of toys scattered around her, entirely absorbed in her play. But as he paused to watch, a sense of urgency unfurled within him. For Lily, the clock was ticking, and he felt that each passing day made his fight increasingly more pressing. While she giggled, James took a step back, assessing the clutter of plastic figures and plush animals that filled the space. Each object was a reminder of the life he wanted to preserve. As he moved to join her, he realized that his desire to advocate was intertwined with the resolve to redefine his role as a father, not merely as a caretaker against the odds, but as a protector of potential. The subsequent days morphed into a blur of research, conversations, and frantic note-taking. James delved into integrative medicine, exploring practitioners specializing in both traditional and holistic approaches. He connected with herbalists, acupuncturists, and dietitians eager to share insights on existing therapies that could complement Lily's current treatment plan. The more he engaged, the more he sensed the strength coiling within him, a renewal of purpose that replaced his earlier self-doubt with clarity. But clarity was often eclipsed by fear. Each discussion introduced new variables into his mind. The risks and benefits played like a chaotic orchestra, every note amplifying the tension in his gut. The anxiety that had accompanied him during the initial meeting surfaced again, demanding attention. What if he was relying too heavily on unproven methodologies? What if he placed Lily in jeopardy because of his stubbornness? His internal wrestling intensified, but he resolved to confront the voices of doubt instead of allowing them to dictate his choices. One night, after putting Lily to bed, he opened the journal and scanned its contents. The anecdotes of other parents resonated with him. In their tales, he saw reflections of his struggle, their hope mirrored in his own. It was empowering to comprehend that this journey was not solely his, it was collective, filled with nuggets of wisdom he could apply to his own circumstances. Motivated by this realization, James drafted a comprehensive proposal detailing his envisioned integrative approach. It illustrated how ancient practices could weave seamlessly into Lily's existing treatment plan, emphasizing collaborative cooperation rather than substitution. As he pieced it together, he felt as if he was laying down a path toward a potential breakthrough, one that could lead not only to Lily's health but to his personal evolution as well. Yet, beneath the excitement simmered a thought that shook him to his core. Would the medical professionals embrace this proposal? Or would it be seen as a stepping stone to further disbelief? He felt a sense of impending confrontation that loomed closer with each passing hour. As the day of the subsequent meeting approached, James paced the floor, torn between hope and fear, a newfound conviction holding him together. He could no longer view the medical team as infallible. He was prepared to stand his ground against skepticism and potential disapproval. The time had come to unveil his vision, but more than that, it was an opportunity to confront his own limits, the confines of the father he had always been, and step into the role of a formidable advocate for his child. He exhaled slowly, steadfast in purpose but aware of the storm brewing around him. With a renewed sense of determination, he picked up the papers, ready to face whatever would come next. The confrontation awaited, and he could feel its gravity in his bones. What he didn't know was how profoundly this would change him, not just in the fight for Lily, but in the very fabric of who he was becoming. The day of the meeting arrived with an electricity that tingled in James' limbs. The air in the waiting room buzzed around him, punctuated by whispered conversations and rustling papers. He clutched his proposal tightly, a lifeline amidst the chaos. It safeguarded his thoughts like a protective shell, yet also felt heavy with the burden of expectation. The systematic approach of the medical staff, with their crisp white coats and focused demeanors, both intimidated and compelled him. He had come to perceive them as gatekeepers, each one holding keys to Lily's fate. The stakes were painfully high, and with every heartbeat, he questioned his resolve. Could he truly influence the conversation in a room filled with such expertise? As he moved to the conference room, James' internal monologue churned. Doubt whispered in raging tones, "Who am I to deviate from accepted protocols?" Yet an ember sparked within him, forging a path from his paternal instincts. His love for Lily was fierce, a guidance illuminating the way through his uncertainty. Once seated, the medical team eyed him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Dr. Stevens, the lead physician, raised an eyebrow as James began to speak. "I appreciate your time today," James started, his voice a shaky yet determined timbre. "I want to share my perspective on Lily's treatment plan." The initial words tasted like shards of glass, his throat tightened, but he pressed on. He articulated his thoughts on integrative medicine, weaving together scientific insights he had collected. The doctor's expressions hardened slightly with each mention of alternative methodologies. James felt their disbelief like a wall pushed against him, yet he stood firm and continued. "Integrative practices are gaining recognition in various fields," he argued, his tone gathering strength. "They can complement existing treatments, providing holistic care that addresses not just symptoms but overall wellness. As James detailed the potential benefits: enhanced immune response, improved quality of life, he could see the doctors shifting in their seats, a subtle flicker of intrigue mingling with skepticism. Dr. Stevens interjected, "Are you suggesting we abandon conventional methodologies?" "No." James interrupted, realizing he had struck a nerve. "This isn't about abandoning what works, it's about expanding the toolkit available to us. We owe it to Lily to explore every avenue." The room filled with charged silence as he locked eyes with each physician, seeking to break through their professional reservations. He felt emboldened. It was no longer just about Lily's health but his evolution, stepping into a realm where he could articulate marginalized perspectives. Yet, as moments passed, he picked up on subtle cues: the furrowed brows, skeptical glances shared among the professionals. Each second felt like dripping sand, and doubt clawed its way back into his mind. What if this was futile? Finally, one of the junior doctors spoke up, "But how do we know that these methods are safe? That they won't put her at additional risk?" The spotlight shifted towards James, igniting an unexpected fire within him. "That's exactly why I want to collaborate," he stated passionately. "To set up gradual trials and monitor her progress closely. We could create a pilot program, bring accountability to the forefront of exploration." His plea for collaboration stirred something in the room. Dr. Stevens leaned back, arms crossing, contemplative. "It's unorthodox," he finally said, "but you present a compelling case. We might consider a review of your proposal, if only to explore its feasibility." A surging rush of hope flooded through James, and the weight he had carried felt significantly lighter. He had not only sparked a conversation but ignited a potential shift. In that moment, he realized this wasn't merely about Lily's treatment, it was his emergence as a formidable advocate, pulling away layers of hesitance he'd worn for too long. However, as the meeting adjourned, unease nudged at him. What if they said no? What if the acknowledgement of alternative avenues was a double-edged sword? The storm of uncertainty enveloped him once again, an unsolved puzzle looming large. And just before he exited, one thought anchored itself into his mind: if he could ignite this change in a room of medical professionals, maybe he could face the world beyond too. It beckoned like a siren song, urging him to dive deeper into the currents of advocacy and discovery. The moment of truth had arrived, but James couldn't shake the feeling that his journey was just beginning, raising questions of who he might become if he dared to unravel conventions. What if the real confrontation lay beyond these walls, testing the depths of his newfound resolve? The days that followed the meeting became a montage of anticipation and anxiety. James found himself oscillating between moments of hope and dread. The medical team had promised to review his proposal, but the waiting gnawed at him, a persistent itch that haunted his thoughts. He drew in deep breaths, attempting to dissipate the weighted silence that hung in the air. In private, James began scrutinizing the research he had gathered. Each study, each article, became a lifeline to bolster his arguments. He immersed himself in the intricacies of integrative medicine, mindful practices, nutritional science, and the psychological aspects of healing. The more he learned, the more his passion ignited. He would not just defend his proposal, he would become a voice for patients like Lily who deserved the fullest spectrum of care. Yet, there remained a disquieting shadow creeping over his newfound commitment. Every night, as he stared at the ceiling, it struck him with undeniable clarity: was he truly advocating for Lily, or was this a means to quell his fear of helplessness? The thought sent shivers down his spine. There was a fine line between advocacy and obsession, and he feared he might be tipping into the latter. He needed balance, he needed support. Thus, he reached out to others who had traversed similar paths, fathers and mothers with tales of struggles in the medical system. Each connection weaved a network of shared experiences and wisdom. Through late-night phone calls and coffee shop meetings, he discovered new ways to articulate his vision. Their encouragement fortified him, reminding him he was not alone. With each passing week, he mentally sharpened his arguments, preparing for the inevitable conversation that would follow the team's review. He practiced how to present his points without appearing aggressive while showcasing the evidence he had gathered. This self-reflection highlighted a new layer within him, his ability to advocate without abandon, balancing emotion with reason. But then came the email. A formal invitation for a follow-up meeting appeared in his inbox one crisp morning. He read through the text, heart thumping against his ribcage. The review would take place the following week, and they had invited him to present further details. Instinctively, James felt elation peppered with a fresh wave of anxiety. This was it. The moment where he would either secure Lily a chance to flourish or falter under the pressures of doubt. As days ticked down to the meeting, he took strides to prepare himself mentally, engaging in longer periods of meditation and employing visualization techniques. He envisioned walking into the conference room, exuding confidence, and captivating the team's attention. This was not merely a technical presentation, it was a chance to reshape the discussion around healthcare for children facing dire prognoses. Yet within that excitement bubbled a silent tension. With the week narrowing, the specter of skepticism loomed. Doubts crept in, whispering that perhaps he wasn't equipped enough, that the doctors might dismiss him as just another well-meaning parent. He ruminated over his past hesitations, the moments he allowed himself to be unseen, muted by fear rather than driven by conviction. James had to confront these doubts head-on. The pretense of authority that the doctors possessed needed softening, a human element needed to weave through the clinical rigidity, and he was the one to bridge that gap. His identity as a loving father armed him with empathy, and if he harnessed that force, he could create genuine dialogue. As the day of the meeting approached, his internal resolve solidified. He would not merely contemplate the implications of his proposal, he would stand as a testimony to what parental love could achieve. He held on to his vision, the transformation not just for Lily but for the many families waiting to explore alternatives for care. The prospect was both thrilling and terrifying, and as he closed his eyes that night, a new question surged to the forefront of his mind: was he ready to become a changemaker, both for Lily and beyond? The answer would unfold in the conference room, but first, he had to face the doctor's collective scrutiny, the challenge of not just presenting information but also embodying the conviction that lay behind it. The time had come to face the gravity of his ambitions while holding on to the hope that had sustained him thus far. A wave of adrenaline surged through James as he arrived at the hospital the morning of the meeting. The halls felt sterile yet charged, each step echoing his internal rhythm of resolve and trepidation. He had spent sleepless nights rehearsing, a slippery dance between confidence and fear. Today was not just another day, it was a pivot point, the culmination of his fight for Lily. The conference room loomed ahead, its door a threshold to his ambitions. He lingered outside for a moment, his hand poised on the cold handle, recalling the faces of fellow parents he had spoken to. Their voices resonated in him, weaving strength into his resolve, urging him to confront the towering authority of the medical staff awaiting him inside. As he entered, a rush washed over him, the sleek presentation screen, the brightly lit room, and the seasoned professionals perched behind a long table. They were all scrutinizing him through layers of expertise, their expressions unreadable. Heart pounding, he took a steadying breath and stepped forward, grounding himself in the present. He was not just James, he was a father advocating for his child and countless others like her. "Thank you for the opportunity to present my proposal," he began, each word echoing with a newfound clarity. As he launched into the substance of his research, the intricacies of integrative medicine flowed smoothly from his lips. He could see their skeptical expressions begin to soften as he shared case studies illustrating remarkable transformations, evidence that merged traditional and modern approaches in caregivers' practices. But just as his momentum built, a question came slicing through his presentation. It was Dr. Evans, a senior physician known for his rigorous standards. "Mr. Carter, you're suggesting treatments outside conventional wisdom. How can you justify this when research is still nascent in integrative methods?" James felt the heat rise in his chest. It was exactly the type of skepticism he had anticipated, yet he refused to falter. "Dr. Evans, I understand your concerns. But every innovation begins as a hypothesis. My intent is not to discard established medicine but to offer a broader scope of care that fosters healing on multiple levels. Families are looking for options, and integrative medicine could provide that. Staring into the doctor's gaze, he saw more than a professional demeanor. He sensed the experience of a father buried within the confines of clinical reality, perhaps one who had also grappled with the unthinkable. This revelation fortified him, transforming his pitch into a dialogue rather than a presentation. Time slipped away as he engaged with the panel, navigating their questions with vigor. He spoke about the emotional toll of waiting on diagnoses, the debilitating fear parents face, and how offering integrative tactics could ease that burden. Flashes of his late-night conversations with other caregivers echoed in his mind, guiding him through presenting not just data but touching on the human side of healthcare. He had one more card to play. With newfound confidence, he shared Lily's story. The vulnerability he showed resonated deeply, stirring empathy in a room often shielded by clinical bias. This isn't just research, it's a call to reshape the narrative for countless families. As he concluded, he felt a wave of exhaustion and exhilaration wash over him. The room remained silent, the panel's expressions inscrutable. Had he made an impact, or was he still just a parent reaching for straws against the might of established norms? James took a deep breath, feeling the familiar flicker of doubt creep back in as he awaited their verdict. Would they embrace his ideas or push back the wall of conventionality? As the silence stretched, a new question loomed larger than before: was he brave enough to challenge the status quo further, knowing they held not just the power to decide his proposal's fate but also the ability to redefine the treatment narratives for families like his? Before he knew it, the chair's voice broke through the stillness. "James, we need more than just emotional appeal to make our decision. Are you prepared for the possibility that we may not support your approach?" The answer hovered in the air, a weighty challenge that could shift the entire trajectory of his advocacy. He needed to decide, would he step back into the shadows of uncertainty or fully embrace the role of a changemaker? The breath whooshed out of James as he processed the chair's words. Each syllable seemed to echo off the sterile walls, reverberating through his chest as though the auditorium itself questioned his resolve. Prepared or not, stepping back was not an option he could consider. "Absolutely," he replied, each word deliberate, "but I won't allow fear of rejection to dictate our children's futures. If that means facing opposition, then so be it." In that moment, he understood the evolution within himself. He wasn't just advocating for another clinical approach. He was articulating a vision forged in deep personal stakes, ready to wield it against the indifference of established traditions. A flicker of surprise crossed Dr. Evans' face, quickly masked by professionalism. Yet, it was a pivotal instant for James. He realized that sharing his conviction wasn't merely about the proposal, it was about the profound change he was advocating for and the personal journey that had led him there. His nervous energy transformed into a raw, unflinching determination. "You speak passionately, Mr. Carter," the chair continued, "but without rigorous data backing your claims, our hands are tied." The other panelists exchanged glances, nodding in silent agreement. Their skepticism lingered, threatening to extinguish the nascent flame of hope in James. He took a breath, clearing the fog of uncertainty that lingered in his mind. "I understand the need for data, but let us consider something vital. This isn't solely about clinical measurements. This is human experience. These families despair at the lack of options. Surely, we owe it to them to explore beyond just the data." His voice gained momentum, emboldened by a newfound recognition of his own influence. Dr. Evans leaned forward, visibly intrigued yet cautious. "So, are you suggesting we take a leap of faith? To pivot towards your perspective without sufficient empirical evidence?" James paused, recognizing the gravity of what he had proposed. Here was the essence of his journey, a leap of faith. It was not unfamiliar. Each night spent researching integrative medicine, every conversation with parents who felt lost, had required that leap. He nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his conviction solidify into resolve. "Yes, it's a leap. But isn't every innovation born from a leap of faith? The essence of discovery lies in daring to challenge the unknown." Tension rippled through the room. The panelists exchanged measured glances, their body language shifting from skepticism to a semblance of curiosity. Perhaps they were peeking through the curtain of rigid traditionalism for the first time. "Your passion is commendable," the chair admitted, "but we need more specific recommendations. What would the first steps look like? How can we reasonably implement this while ensuring patient safety?" Questions swirled in James' mind, conjuring a mental map of possibilities that could guide him. He envisioned an integrative pilot program, patients monitored meticulously, with clear metrics for evaluating the efficacy and safety of combined treatments. He could see it all: partnerships with alternative medicine practitioners, educational workshops for parents, a community of support around the experiences of families. Each idea felt like a building block in the vision he had fought to articulate. "I can develop a more concrete plan," he stated, a sense of professionalism rolling off his tongue despite the vibrant excitement boiling inside. "Involving a phase where both traditional and integrative methods are used under close observation, documenting every aspect, ensuring accountability. The aim would be gradual, controlled, and transparent." The room became charged with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. As the panel deliberated, he grasped the enormity of his challenge. What had begun in mere desperation had evolved into a structured approach grounded in shared experiences and radical compassion. James could feel the stakes rising again, his heart racing in tandem with the ticking clock on the wall, each second mirroring the urgency felt by countless families in silent desperation. The realization struck him: he was not merely pleading for a change, he was now a challenger, seeking justice not only for Lily but for an entire community buried under an outdated paradigm. Yet there remained a lingering trepidation, as if the door to transformation was creaking open but not yet wide enough. Even as hope began to solidify, a shadow of doubt crept back in: would they truly embrace this radical shift, or would this be the moment he surrendered his fragile aspirations to the abyss of conventional denial? And as if on cue, the chair's expression shifted into something sharper. "We will consider your proposal, but I need you to understand, if we do proceed, there will be significant scrutiny. Are you ready for the pushback?" Just at that moment, the statement hung heavily, challenging James to reflect on the nature of his resolve. He had faced doubt before, yet nothing quite like this. Would he retreat again, or would he ready himself to bear the weight of this responsibility, poised to face the backlash head-on? His internal struggle took center stage as the chair continued, a new challenge deepening the tension in the air. Would he be able to navigate this new landscape, filled with external pressures and risks, while staying true to his pioneering vision for a compassionate healthcare future? The murmurs of the panel enveloped James, each voice a potential barrier to the change he so fervently craved. He felt the air thicken as he adjusted to the gravity of the chair's warning: scrutiny loomed like a storm cloud. He was now not only advocating for a shift in treatment but was also gambling with his own credibility. Determination surged through him, transforming nagging doubts into sharp focus. His mind raced as he recalled the nights spent rifling through research papers, poring over interviews with families on the brink of despair. How could he present the staggering emotional weight of their experiences to a group bound by statistics and measurements? A decision crystallized within him. It wasn't just the scientific rigor he needed to embrace but the human stories behind the data. The panel needed to see the faces he envisioned, the families whose concerns demanded attention not merely to validate his approach, but to transform it into a mission. James had spent years sidelining that aspect of his work, focusing on the empirical evidence that justified decisions made within sterile rooms, but now he recognized that storytelling was as potent as any scientific study. "Perhaps," he began, his thoughts intertwining with his words, "if I could connect each phase of this proposal with the stories of affected families, would that satisfy your need for both data and humanity? Imagine a video series chronicling their journeys, emphasizing the desperation they face and the potential breakthroughs they yearn for. It's one thing to read statistics, it's entirely another to see a mother pleading for change." The silence in the room deepened, eyebrows raised, and attention sharpened. If they could understand the emotional urgency, then perhaps they could see the necessity of his proposal. However, a darker voice in his mind questioned whether that strategy would be perceived as manipulative. He wrestled, fearful that his desperation could lead him to present an overly sentimental case that might detract from legitimate concerns over safety and efficacy. Dr. Evans disrupted the internal dialogue, stating, "A compelling idea, Mr. Carter, but how will you ensure that the data collection remains unbiased amid such emotional narratives?" James' heart raced at the challenge, but he welcomed it. "I could partner with a third-party research organization. They would handle the metrics, ensuring thorough evaluations, while we narrate the human experience alongside the data. The success of this initiative hinges on presenting both sides' stories and statistics. It cannot be one without the other." Fresh hope took root, fueling his conviction further. He had stumbled upon a powerful rhetoric, synthesizing clinical and emotional elements to forge a more humane approach to healthcare. But would it be enough? He watched the expressions around the table shift, intrigued, skeptical, and even a flicker of agreement from Dr. Lewis. The tension morphed into possibilities as James spoke from a safe distance over what he envisioned. "I am ready to confront any backlash," he asserted boldly, surprising even himself at the strength of his own voice. "This isn't merely about my proposal, it's about re-evaluating a system failing countless children. The time has come for healthcare to redefine success not just by numbers, but through the transformations in lives. Every family deserves alternatives." Yet as he spoke, a creeping sensation clawed at his thoughts. The risk loomed large. What if he was setting himself up for failure? The reality of potential backlash threatened to eclipse the fragile power of hope he had ignited. His vision of a positive response could just as easily dissolve into chaos, criticism raining down like arrows aimed at someone who dared to step outside accepted boundaries. As the panel began to discuss, James felt the world around him spin. He had taken a stand and articulated a vision that transcended the usual rhetoric, but could he truly sustain it against the inevitable pushback? With his heart pounding, he considered an unsettling thought: was he prepared to fight not only against skepticism from the panel but also against his own inner fears? A question loomed larger now than the previous one: what would he do when the storm hit, and he felt completely alone against the multitude of dissent? The meetings would lead to scrutiny, igniting a fire that could either fuel his passion forward or threaten to overwhelm him. As his mind raced with the potential conflicts ahead, he realized he was standing at the threshold of a new, treacherous chapter, one that required him to reconcile his ambition with vulnerability. He stepped back mentally, processing the impending confrontation that awaited him. In that moment of reflection, an unsettling realization occurred to him: the heart of change would not only demand courage, it would require a resilience he had yet to fully summon. The true battle was just beginning. In the weeks that followed the pivotal meeting, James found himself navigating an uncharted landscape, an arena where uncertainty had once again taken center stage. The medical board had accepted his proposal for review, but in doing so, they had invited scrutiny that threatened to unravel his burgeoning sense of resolve. Yet he became acutely aware that this was not merely a singular battle, it was part of a broader journey, a transformation he had set in motion, both for himself and for Lily. With every passing day, as the proposal circulated among the experts at the hospital, James attended support groups and educational workshops, fully immersing himself in the world of integrative medicine. He gained first-hand insights into patient struggles, procedures, and the very essence of the connections that tethered families to hope. Each encounter fortified his belief that healthcare must encompass the human experience, not just the medical. His evenings were consumed with meticulously crafting follow-up presentations and gathering feedback from fellow advocates in the integrative health community. Every piece of data was grounded in lived experiences, designed to evoke the urgency he felt within. This was no longer just a proposal, it was a movement demanding attention, a clarion call for compassion in the clinical setting, and a testimony to the possibilities that lay at its intersection. One crisp morning, an email jolted his heart awake. The board had arranged a second meeting, this time to discuss feedback, including potential reservations some had. As he scanned the message, a familiar surge of anxiety mixed with excitement coursed through him. He was being called back into the arena, and this time, he could harness what he had learned, ready to advocate even louder. The day of the meeting arrived, and James felt the weight of expectation sprawling across his shoulders. He remembered what it felt like to be paralyzed by fear, but now, there was a shift within him, an unrelenting courage fortified by the knowledge that he represented many voices and countless families waiting for change. As he stepped into the conference room, the atmosphere felt more charged than before. The medical professionals sat ceremoniously, their expressions a tapestry of curiosity and skepticism. He inhaled deeply, feeling the palpable energy converge around him. "I appreciate the opportunity to revisit my proposal," he began, his voice steady, "and commend you for your thoughtful consideration. I'd like to address the concerns previously raised, while reiterating the necessity of exploring integrative approaches." His heartbeat steadied as he spoke. James elaborated on the importance of combining ancient wisdom with modern treatments, illuminating examples where similar programs had led to dramatic health improvements. He laid out specific plans that encompassed ongoing research, strict monitoring protocols, and accountability within a cooperative framework. The proposal began to materialize not just as a document but as a roadmap toward an innovative healthcare paradigm. Intermittent discussions peppered through his presentation, but with each exchange, James felt the budding support among the panel members growing stronger. Dr. Evans, sitting at the front, leaned forward with interest, suggesting potential avenues for collaboration, while others raised their hands to share insights from their specialties. A dialogue had sparked, igniting a fervor that swelled in the room, transforming skepticism into curiosity. But a moment of stark clarity emerged when one doctor posed a challenge: "What if this doesn't yield the results we hope for? Are you ready to face that?" James met the gaze with unwavering determination. Life itself carries uncertainty. If we don't attempt to evolve, we relinquish the hope for better treatment options. We owe it to patients like Lily to embrace change, to advocate fervently for their futures. I am prepared to navigate the fallout, knowing full well that the essence of progress is found in trial, error, and recalibration. Should we learn that certain methods are ineffective, then we adapt. But if we never try, we doom ourselves and countless others to stagnation. A collective breath seemed to flow through the room as his words hung in the air. This was a declaration, not just of belief but an acknowledgement of the responsibility that came with advocating for change, a challenge that he was now ready to meet head-on. As discussions continued and the meeting turned into an exchange of ideas, James felt the transformation he had undergone reflected in the evolving conversation around him. He could see that the others were beginning to not only listen but to engage, envisioning the canvas of healthcare shifting to accommodate the voices of the vulnerable. The meeting culminated in the decision to launch a pilot program based on his proposal, a success that felt electrifying as each head in the room nodded during the resolution. Yet amidst that sweet victory stood another revelation: it wasn't just about the recognition, it was about who he had become through this process. No longer a desperate father but a confident advocate, he realized his value extended beyond his daughter. He had transformed into a voice that could instill change. Leaving the conference room, the burden he had carried for so long felt lighter. He wasn't just advocating for Lily's health but for a broader spectrum of possibilities for children with similar conditions. The weight of expectation had morphed into the promise of a new beginning, a mission grounded in compassion and understanding. As he arrived home, Lily's laughter echoed through the halls. Seeing her smile was an affirmation of the journey he had taken, a completion of his inner impasse. He danced with her in the living room, celebrating this pivotal moment not just as a victory for healthcare but as a personal achievement of resilience and heart. "You did it, Daddy!" she exclaimed, her joy radiating, and he felt every ounce of that pride surge through him. With newfound resolve, he understood that genuine change starts with a single voice, a tenacious heart, and the unyielding belief that love can forge new paths. In the months that followed, the pilot program garnered attention and success, leading to expanded implementation across the network. James's advocacy transformed from a personal endeavor into a collective understanding that challenged conventions and changed lives. He solidified his place not just as a father but as a recognized advocate in the healthcare community, a position he had earned through steadfast dedication. This journey had forever changed him. He had conquered despair, filled the void of uncertainty with understanding, and emerged with a solid confidence, a testimony to the power of hope interwoven with tenacity. It was more than personal achievement, it was the beginning of a legacy, a ripple effect that would continue to inspire hope in others. And with every small victory that followed, James remained a vigilant steward for those whose voices hadn't yet been heard, forever committed to forging paths where none existed before. Now, if you truly believe in the power of personal transformation and the impact of advocacy to change lives, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for the stories that inspire and uplift. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread these vital messages. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this transformative conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share the light of hope and change.